little bit of extra background noise this morning. Hey, Ben, can you say hi to everybody?
Hi.
Thank you. Now you're on the internet. Good job. Good job. All right. So without further ado, Ken, take us up.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. Let me pull up my PowerPoint, the Dragonfly edition. So the Dragonfly mission to Titan is what we're going to be talking about this morning. Every few years, NASA gets different proposers together, and they pitch their project ideas to NASA, and NASA funds a few of them or one of them, as in this class, a New Frontiers mission. Now, New Frontiers missions have a colorful history, including missions like the New Horizons mission to Pluto and the Messenger mission to Mercury. So they enjoy a wonderful record of success. They're medium cost missions. They're not like the flagship missions like a Cassini class mission or a Mars 2020 class mission. This is a mission that's slightly scaled down in cost. I forget what the exact figures are, but they're not to exceed, I think it's $400 million in budget, but don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. So the screen, of course, you're seeing Saturn's rings on edge there on the right. And then with Titan in the foreground there, kind of like looking like it's part of the ring there. So it's a pretty interesting image. That's why I chose it. Okay. Get down here to advance my slides. So one of the overarching questions that guides a lot of our missions going out into space is where can we find water? And of course, this is a green Mars, a picture of a green Mars. You know me, if you know anything about me, I love Mars, so I had to throw at least one image of Mars in this presentation, even though this presentation has nothing to do with Mars. Anyway, but it does have to do with elements. And you're looking on the right there, Ben McCall's periodic table of the elements for astronomers. And you can see the relative abundances of the elements there by the size of their icons. On the left-hand side here, we're going to focus on these three in addition to hydrogen, of course, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen. So the big question is, whenever you're exploring, where can you find these elements on your object of exploration? In the case of Titan, you find them mostly down here in organic compounds. Simple and complex compounds that Carl Sagan called tholins, which abide in Titan's atmosphere, and we now know on its surface as well. So this is what Titan looks like. That's the same picture I showed you in slide 1. You can see in the left-hand side Titan's atmosphere here, going up through layers. So this picture was taken by Cassini as it was flying by Titan, with the sun in the back behind Titan to backlight the atmosphere. And there are many good reasons to go to Titan. This is one of the most important, though. Titan is the only other place you can go in the solar system where you have a fluid existing in all three states, like water on Earth. In this case, the fluid is methane and other hydrocarbons, but mostly methane. Methane at the temperatures, at the really cold temperatures, like -300 Fahrenheit temperatures on Titan's surface, methane acts as a liquid under that atmospheric pressure, which is 4x Earth's atmospheric pressure. So you have liquid Titan. You also have rain, methane rain that comes down, and methane clouds that help to obscure the atmosphere from visual observations. And this is a volcano that it's a cryovolcano, in that it's a water ammonia volcano. The mix of the fluid that comes out is water and ammonia. That keeps the water a fluid for long enough to melt into a cone on the surface. So the big question is, where did the oxygen go? For me, anyway. And the answer is into water ice, like on the right-hand side here. This is the extent of our surface knowledge of Titan. Now, Titan's the only other moon in the solar system that has actually been landed on by a spacecraft. In this case, the Huygens mission from the European Space Agency back in 2005. And Huygens spent about 2.5 hours extant on the surface before its batteries froze, and it stopped sending data back. There was also a problem with comm links to Cassini, because Cassini actually went over the horizon, so couldn't receive Huygens data anymore, because Huygens was uplinking to Cassini and then uplinking to Earth. So they got a few of the data packets after Cassini went over the horizon direct from Titan to Earth, but not many. So Huygens lasted about 2.5 hours. These are some pictures. There's descent images here on the left, and you can see Titan looks an awful lot like my part of the world, the eastern coast of North Carolina, with rivers running down to, in this case, a swamp down here, a swampy surface. This is kind of like the consistency of a slushy, if you were to get a slushy or a Slurpee. Whoops. Okay, so we're going to go next. So the Dragonfly is the applied physics lab at Johns Hopkins University's answer to how are we going to explore Titan again? Because Titan is obviously one of those places that NASA wants to go to again, because there's so much tantalizing information and data that came back from Cassini and Huygens that we want to know more. And so that's why this mission was picked back in July of last year as a New Frontiers mission. Okay, and this is where there's a video here. This is the elevator pitch video. Hopefully you get sound from the video. So unfortunately, I don't think a lot of you got the sound and the audio, but it was just a really pretty piano background there. So if you didn't miss it, if you did miss it, you didn't miss a whole lot. You could probably, as somebody said, put cool space music in the background, you'd be just fine. So Dragonfly's mission is to do all of the following. I'm not going to read these to you, but it's going to have extensive weather sensors and be able to characterize the different geological features, mostly made out of water ice. So the answer to where the oxygen went is into the formation of water ice, and probably a subsurface liquid ocean of water. So that's one of the ways it's going to perform some seismic studies to try and understand the underside of Titan, if you will, the inside of Titan, to find out, is there water under there? Or is the water liquid? So a lot of questions to be answered by this mission. And I'm opening up the chat to see if there are any questions here. Oh, okay, whoops. Thank you, Kevin. I'll know that for next time, to share the sound in the share screen section. So this is the timeline right now for this mission. They were originally going to launch in 2025, but they slipped a year back in the actual mission proposal in order to fine tune more of the tech that's actually going to go on the spaceship. the spacecraft to go to Titan. To give you an idea of size, this thing kind of looks like an Electrolux vacuum cleaner minus the propellers. If you know those old model Electroluxes with the wire runners or the steel runners here, metal runners. I'm not sure what metal these are made out of, but it's about the size. It's kind of a cross between the size of the Opportunity and Curiosity rovers. So it's about midway between Opportunity size and Curiosity size. And Curiosity is the size of a mid-sized SUV. So it's the size of a small car. Think of a cube as being the size of this machine. And it will have an easier time flying on Titan because I think Titan's gravity is, I forget what, 1/10 of Earth's gravity or something like that. And the atmosphere is 4 times as thick. So really good flying environment. People have talked about in science fiction of actually having people flying on Titan just with wings you wrap to your arms, flap your arms. You could fly on Titan. So, so this mission promises a whole lot more about Titan because it has the capability of moving, obviously, from place to place. It's going to land, going back to one of the images. I can't go back. Okay. Going back to one of the images where it showed the volcano, it eventually wants to go into the crater of the volcano and actually sample the ice there and find out, what the ice is made of, what kind of ice it is, because as you might know, there's several different kinds of frozen water. It doesn't just exist like we find it here on Earth. Under different temperatures and pressures, the molecular bonds are slightly different. So you end up with a different structure for water. So that, I think, is my presentation. So I'll stand by for any questions. Open the chat window. What is going to keep it from freezing? Okay, it's got an RTG nuclear power plant back here in the aft end of the ship, right there, and that's going to keep everything warm. The decay of plutonium is going to keep the spacecraft and its instruments and everything else warm enough so they don't freeze. It is exactly, Marco, like a drone with six propellers, actually 8 propellers, 4 on each, 4 in stacks of 2 on each end of the rover or the drone. And what is, Mark, questions? What is ICE 9?
I apologize, Ken. I was just making a joke. That's from Kurt Vonnegut's Cat's Cradle.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Anyway, it's a good book. Read it.
Okay, thank you. I'll put that on my reading list. Are there any other questions about any aspect of this mission? So it's like a drone with 6 propellers, so it can change its position. Yes, it can change its position many times. So that's one of the advantages of this mission, is that you have really several different missions because every time it lands at a new landing site, it's like gathering completely different information. It's kind of like a rover, but with the capability of going further and into more different environments. I believe, but I'm not certain, the only thing it can't land on is an open body of water or liquid methane, excuse me. So it can't land on a lake. It can land anywhere up to like the shoreline of a lake, but it can't actually land in a lake. At least it doesn't look like it can from these drawings. I could be wrong. Again, the mission is still very early in its design phase, so they may include some sort of flotation device so it can actually float while it's taking its, so it can take measurements of one of the lakes or several of the lakes on Titan. So who knows? Hopefully they'll incorporate that into the design. But it can go, I think the optimal mission calls for 200 landings. Again, don't quote me on that, but I think judging from what I read, that's how many landings it's going to take to fly from where its original landing site is to the volcanic crater. And so the volcanic crater is actually its mission objective.
Very cool. All right. Any other questions for Ken before we move on this morning? Great. All right. Well, thank you, Ken, once again for our update.
You're welcome.
And so we're very much ahead of schedule, which is always good. It's like moving through your syllabus quickly enough where you get out of class early. It just means that we'll have a little bit more time for what I guess is everybody's new favorite segment. This is the record shop with Mike Smail. So Mike, take it away.
All right. Good morning, everybody. For those of you who weren't here last week, this, I guess, will be the second implementation of me sitting here for 10 minutes telling you about 3 records that I own that I really enjoy, that I think may be of some interest and some relevance to some of you. So, yeah. So, what I'll do is I'll go through one record at a time. When I finish with each one, I will copy some text over to the comments where you can link to where you can listen, where you can learn more about it, purchase it. And then at the end, I will put up kind of a graphic showing information about all 3 records. Michael, please tip me off if it doesn't come up right away the way we had problems with it last week.
Will do.
That. Thank you. All right, so the first record I want to talk about here is back in January. I was in New York and Boston for a week to see the premiere of the new show at the Hayden Planetarium in New York, and to see a interesting kind of listening party concert experience at the planetarium in Boston. And I had a little bit of time in New York to do some record shopping, which is something I enjoy doing when I travel. And I was, I don't even remember the name of the shop, but I was just thumbing through the records in the bin, and I pulled out this record and I said, well, that's interesting. I pretty much have to buy this. And that record is this one right here. And try to position it to avoid glare from the window. But yes, that is a record with a Godot Kronos on the cover of it. And so, yeah, I mean, instant purchase, right? It is by a Swedish trio called Gravmaskin. It's called Volume 1. And it was made doubly interesting because I was looking up information on this back when I got back to the hotel. And there are no Godot Kronos projectors in Sweden. Mark Webb, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's still the case. So I was like, okay, so how did this Swedish band come up with this specific planetarium projector to go on the cover of their record? So in looking through the looking through the notes, it mentions the cover photo was taken by a gentleman named Axel Stolt, which is a German-sounding name if I've ever heard one. So thanks to the database, the APLF database, sorry, Sean and Mark for not using the IPS database, but in looking through photos on the APLF database, I was able to do a little bit of photo comparison and determine that this picture is almost certainly from the Raumflug Uruguayan Planetarium in Cottbus, Germany, which is not too far outside of Berlin. So a fun little thing. Now, obviously, this is what it looks like, but I'm sure you're wondering, what does it sound like? It's rock music. It veers a little bit into that sort of progressive technical style music, but there are also some kind of spacey keyboards. The band sort of self-describes themselves as space rock, which is kind of fitting. So that is record number 1, Volume 1 by Gravmaskin. I'm actually going to share two links. There are basically 2 different Bandcamp links for they did a US release on black vinyl, which is what this one was. And then there's a European release on white vinyl. For those of you in Europe, you can actually, it's like €5 or something. It's dirt cheap. So I would definitely recommend that. Second up, I should also mention that I was also quasi-challenged by Michael to focus on international artists for this segment with our earlier time and our wider array of hopefully international attendees. So the second record I want to talk about is actually a split LP between an English doom metal band named Moloch and a doom metal band from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I used to live, called Thou. And I don't listen to a lot of metal, but I kind of make an exception for Thou and similar things. If you're thinking like metal, if you're thinking like fast, like, this is not that. Doom metal is very, very slow, very plodding. It's very heavy, very, very dense. But this is a split between Thou and Moloch. It's called Tears That Soak a Callous Heart. And this was actually made, this is the second pressing of the record. The bands toured together in 2010 and pressed this split for their tour. It's kind of, I mean, it's kind of an EP. It's like 2 or 3 songs by each band. A lot of really cool old kind of woodcut style artwork. But so they released it in 2010. I wasn't able to get a copy of that, but then the 2 bands toured together again in 2017. And they did this this repressing, 250 copies of this for their summer tour in 2017. So I was able to pick that up when they came through here in Chicago. So if you want something a little heavier, a little louder, screamy, hard to understand vocals, so just know what you're getting into. But honestly, I have almost Thou's entire catalog, and I strongly recommend anything they do. And if on the odd chance any of you happen to have the first pressing of Tears That Soak a Callous Heart, get in touch. I would be interested in taking that off your hands. All right, so that's number 2. And again, this is a split, so it's a link to Moloch's Bandcamp. They're from Nottingham in England, and then a link to Thou's, where you can Thou's stuff. You can actually listen to their entire catalog. You can actually get their entire catalog for free through Bandcamp. They make a point to make all their music freely accessible, and then also sell physical copies for folks who may be interested in that, like me. All right, last but not least, I want to close. We'll kind of do a musical 180 from doom metal, and we'll come back to another fairly recent release that came out. I wouldn't say it was last summer, within the last 9 months, I guess, at this point. And it's an Italian composer named Bruno Bavotta, and the record is called Get Lost. And this is very, I think you'd best describe this as modern classical. It's almost entirely piano, very quiet, very soothing. Last night, it was quite stormy here in Chicago. And this is like perfect, turn the lights off, lay down, just chill out and listen to music. The style, the record itself is actually, I tried to show a record like this last week, and it seems to be working out a little bit better today, but it's a nice kind of pearlescent, a little bit of a green tinge. This is limited to 500 copies. And then there's also kind of the standard black pressing of 1,000 or however many there are for that. So some nice, real nice, just subtle, quiet, relaxing piano tunes as well. And again, Bruno Bavotta, he's an Italian composer and multi-instrumentalist. He's released a couple of records. That is the most recent. So there's the information on Bruno. And then let's try our luck with sharing the screen again. And again, this is just a quick, and yeah, Michael, let me know if this didn't come through, but again, just a quick, it's not?
It's not,
Oh.
yeah.
This is
You can
weird.
share the picture now that it's open.
Okay, weird. Okay. Good times with video conferencing. Okay, it's there now. Okay, so weird. I guess maybe I'll try waiting a little longer after sharing the screen to add the picture next time. I don't know. But yeah, so Gravmaskin Volume 1, that's Swedish space rock. Moloch and Thou is doom metal, a US split, and then Bruno Bavotta, a nice light modern classical Italian composer. Yeah, so those are the 3 records for this week. Next week, we will be in the midst of the 50th anniversary of Apollo 13. So next week's edition of the Record Shop will be Apollo 13 themed. So that's something fun to look forward to. I've already got 2 records picked out. Just need to figure out the third. And I guess at this point, I'm going to take this down, and then yeah, let me know. Let's see if see what's up in the chat. There's a song titled Planetarium by a band in Japan called Bump of Chicken. That's an interesting name for a band. I'm gonna have to go look them up. Thanks, Mark. So yeah, if there are no further questions, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next week to talk Apollo 13.
Thank you, Mike. So now we've come to what is the end of the schedule that we have currently. So of course, what we can do at the end of all of the e-conferences is to open it up. We have our open forum here. So as long as you've got, put your hand up or you cue something in there. Well, Paige, we'll get to that in a little bit. If anybody wants to participate in open forum and want to share anything for this week, let me know. Of course, since he's in the room, and we might as well get the announcements out there. Mark Webb, if you can go ahead and give us a little update on our hospitality suites.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. All right. This week, on Thursday, there is not one, but two hospitality suites. Two, count them. The first one is time shifted much earlier than the normal evening hour in order to accommodate folks from Europe who have been wanting to join but not wanting to stay up until 3 in the morning to do so. So we're going to be running it in the early afternoon here in the United States, which will be sort of a normal 7 p.m. time for most of Europe, 6 to 8 p.m. in Europe. So that's the first one that happens on Thursday. That's Euro Virtual Hospitality Suite. And then later that evening at the normal time of 8 p.m. Central, we will have the regularly scheduled Virtual Hospitality Suite, which this week features Jackie Bauman doing a little wine and canvas painting event where we can sip our beverages, converse, and do an art activity all at the same time. You don't have to participate in the art activity, but why not? And then after we are done painting, I think we'll try to do a round of screen sharing so that people can see each other's works. So if you go to the invitation, there is a link to both of those events. And today is Wednesday, I believe, so those happen tomorrow. And we hope to see everybody there.
Thank you, Mark.
At one or both. You can go to both.
I mean, if you want to keep the buzz going for 10 hours, I mean, more power to you.
I cannot guarantee that I will be in the room through the intermediate time.
Paige had a question. The Zoom security issues and whether their updates allow open broadcasting studio now. I will take the second part of that question first. I have not checked yet. I'm not going to mess with a good thing right now. But the security issues are beginning to be patched up, which is the case if you're a company that doesn't want to be completely blowing its market share at this time. The biggest issue with the security is that in most cases, individuals will use the same link for their personal meeting room, which means that once that link has been released into the wild, it will then get used over and over and over again. So if someone wants to troll or bomb a Zoom meeting, all they have to do is continually press that link until the room is open, and then they can do whatever they want. What we try to do, and one of the reasons that we post new links every time, is that every e-conference, every hospitality suite is an independent link. It only works once, which means that once it's open and closed, you cannot reopen the room. You can't have anybody that's going to come in here who doesn't have that original link. Additionally, Zoom has the ability to put individuals into what's called the waiting room, which is where most of you are before the conference starts. I see all of your names, and let's say 99 times out of 100, I can recognize every single name. And then once we've admitted somebody, if somebody uses their initials, say it's like JAA or something, and then I can recognize that a second time. That's one of the ways that we can keep riffraff out of here. maybe there's a name that pops up we just don't want in the room, and we just kind of leave them eternally in that purgatory of the waiting room. But we try not to. So there are a couple of common sense things that we've been trying to do to ensure that we don't have those security issues. I believe the main security issue it froze right now, comes from recording a Zoom, not from streaming. So we don't record anymore. All we do is stream, and that prevents one of the major issues at the time from people being able to access a computer or game controller, things of that sort. So as of right now, we should be completely safe. I will check the OBS update today. I know there's been like 3 updates since last week. So we'll see how that is, and I'll report back probably in No Dialogues or at one of the future e-conferences to let you guys know how that's moving forward. But at the very least, it's something keeping an eye on, just given how many people are using the platform, and we want to make sure that everybody is internet safe, which is an important thing.
Can I jump in real quick here, Michael?
You may.
I would like to make a request that when you join one of the e-conferences or the virtual hospitality suite, as you enter the room, if you would, use your first and last name as your screen identity. Not everybody's going to know everybody, and if you use initials or your institution, it makes it more difficult for people to converse with you. So just as a thought to the other guests, if you could use, your whole name.
Juliet, go ahead.
Sorry, sorry, my cursor is super tiny. I'm like, where is it? Yeah, so I was gonna say, if anybody wants the slides I presented, I can send them to you as PDF, just let me know. And I can answer any questions, and if someone wants to talk, chat anytime, just shoot me an email.
Anyone else this morning?
I would say likewise with my slides as well. If anybody wants the Dragonfly presentation for their own bits, I'll put my email in the chat if you want to get a copy of that.
Great. All right. Then if we have no further, Noreen's seems to come up automatically. How I changed that to first and last name. You should, or in the case of being the host, I can actually rename you all to whatever I want. So at some point, if you see a name that no one recognizes, that's just me. That's just me being a jerk, which I'll try not to be. Also, no one has ever referred to this man as Nicholas Lake, which is weird. It's just, it should be Nick. It has to be Nick. And I see Mike smiling there. So thanks, Google. So what we have planned for next week, 2 conferences, one on Wednesday, one on Friday. Both of those will start at noon, and we have full schedules for both, especially on Wednesday. So we have Patty Seaton, who's going to open us up. Derek Demeter is going to talk about virtual star parties. And then we have Anna Green's German Words of the Week. And then Justin Bartle from the Science Museum of Virginia in Richmond is going to be doing a board game review about a game called Planetarium. There's another one about constellations. I guess we'll get that as a double. And then, of course, another episode of The Record Shop, another episode of podcast for your Planetarian, and then some more open forums. So a lot of fun stuff next week, plus a hospitality suite, then mini maps the week following. So there's a lot going on. Feel free to share this. One of the questions we've gotten is, are the e-conferences only open to Dome Dialogues people? The answer is absolutely not. It's just where we've based it from. Anyone you want to have join us, send the link. mainly because I will trust your better judgment as to getting that out there. But anyone from any of the regionals, any of the international organizations, they are welcome. As long as everybody comes in and acts professional, has a good time, it's all that matters to us. So if you want to take any of the Zoom links, any of the event links, and send those along, please feel free. So with that, will there from Amy Gallagher, will there be recordings on YouTube? I've been recommending that my part-time staff watch when they have time. Yes, the only thing that there was the Lunar Caravan was not streamed. Everything else is being streamed. So to give you one extra idea of what will always be streamed and what won't, we'll never stream a hospitality suite because that's just dumb. And we will not stream something if a presenter requests. Always, we'd rather have the presenters than to deal with that. And then next week we have time set aside for a discussion with some of the IPS officers, the leaders of some of the subcommittees, and we want that to be as open a conversation as possible. And so we're not going to stream that as well. We simply want people to be able to say what they need to in the room, have the open discussions, and not have to worry that it's going to be, on YouTube forever. So we try to stay very cognizant of all of that to make sure that all of the useful stuff is on YouTube and remains accessible to all of you. So yeah, we've had some great stuff. We've got lots of subscribers now, which means that every time we post a video, you'll get a notification that something has been uploaded, which is great. And then as always, if you would like to be a presenter, please let me know. If you have a topic that you don't want to present on, but what you'd like somebody else to present on, that's a good idea too. Let us know and we'll find the right people. It's a small community. We have a lot of connections. We'll find somebody who's able to do that. What I'm currently working on now, no promises here. We're trying to find somebody who has some background in the Small Business Administration, somebody who can speak to working through the process for some of the nonprofits and the smaller museums of working through applying for the payroll protection and for the small business loans. Hopefully we'll find the right person, and that's something we'd like to get out there as soon as possible. So if any of you have a good connection, somebody who's dealt with that before, just to be able to walk through some of the questions that members of our community may have, would certainly be a great resource. But if we don't have anything else, 23 minutes ahead of schedule, always good. So thank you to all of our presenters, for all of you for attending today. And we'll see you either at the hospitality suites tomorrow. And if not, we'll see you next week at the e-conferences. Take care.
Bye.
And
Drama say bye-bye.
Bye.
bye, Andromeda.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
My dog say arf, 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 arf,
See
arf.
you.
I can't.
Oh, Luna.
Hi, Susan.
Say hi, doggies.
I missed that stage. My daughter's 14 and hiding upstairs.
Hey, see you next time.
Presumably on her own Zoom.